Parsons was a genius. Parsons was a mystic. Parsons was a crazy man. Parsons was the most practical of all of them. Parsons came in and said, no, I want rockets. I want things to fly. I want to see results. Well, let me tell you about Jack Parsons. There's a great number of stories about him. There's a great aura of events and people and places and things that he did. And one of the things that I'm fascinated with is the man comes on the scene late 1930s, early 1940s in Southern California at a place that was going to be renowned for its development of rockets that would lead on into the later 20th century. He and his old buddy from junior high, I gather, Ed Foreman, had been sending off rockets, sky rockets, bottle rockets, backyard rockets. Supposedly their backyard here in Pasadena was pockmarked with rockets that had been sent up. But they had reached the limits of what they, as amateur experimenters, could do. And they wanted to know more about what was happening. They wanted to know the theory behind the practical applications that had already figured out how to take wax and gunpowder and make rockets that burned for maybe a half a second, 2 seconds at most. Got a few hundred feet up into the air. So you go to where the theory is taught. You go to Caltech. They turn up at Theodore von Karman's door, saying to him, "Dear Dr. von Karman, we're just a couple of townspeople. We would like to find out a little bit more about rockets. Understand you're the one to tell us."
Dr. von Karman was a very astute person, and fortunately he was interested in rockets, and he would give good advice and other things, and then if something was absolutely crazy, wouldn't work at all, he had enough tact to tone it down and not just to go after a guy and criticize him and says, "You're a bonehead." No, he was very good. He encouraged people to come up with new ideas, and he'd help them.
They tried things with liquid fuels. They tried different motors. And one of the things that von Karman, who enters back in into all of this, came up with as a possible project for them to do, since now the war was coming, World War II was coming, and they were looking at applications that had direct use to the military. One of the things they came up with was a thing called JATOs, jet-assisted takeoff. And they knew that jet-assisted takeoffs were going to be difficult to achieve using liquid fuels. The problem facing Jack Parsons as a practical problem was how to get those solid fuels to burn slower and longer, and how to put them into a rocket casing that would allow it to stay in the casing and not have part of the flame, as the one end was lit, burn down the side of the case and burn the fuel quicker than just right at the very end of it.
The first ones exploded rather than give us nice gentle propulsion. We thought maybe as the trip out, they might have jostled them and fractured the solid powder units, because they were solid powder units. But after that, everything worked just fine.
Jack would go down before the test began and carry out an ode to Pan, chanting certain words and stamping his feet up and down, somehow having an influence upon the success of the JATO. And it's at this point in life, too, of my understanding of Parsons, that his life kind of takes a turn. And one of the things that apparently is going on here is his involvement with the OTO. I don't know how else to explain it, except that there are other influences that are coming into play that are changing others' perception of him because they know about the other things he's involved with.
During this time, he did looking for something to help pay the rent. I guess he owned the place. But they put an ad in the paper only those who are atheists and I forgot oddballs need apply. And we did get, as you say, a diversity of people who are attracted to this kind of an ad.
Gave me the Eliphas Levi History of Magic, and we talked that over. And Jack told me about some of his careers and some of his aspirations. We talked briefly about the rocket that he wanted to go to the moon.
One of the other things that was going on in Southern California at this time in the 1930s was the rise of the genre of writing in the United States of science fiction.
At an early age, I became interested in science fiction, and many of the science fiction stories were just sort of imagination junk, but others were almost like a prediction of things that are going to happen, actually happen. And when I was at Wright Field and other places, a lot of what I would talk about, trying to get the powers that were interested in rockets, came from what I read in science fiction, the things that were really going to be practical.
When Jack and I and all these science fiction writers were co-mingling, we visited back and forth for Heinlein, and we'd drive over there, and I think Heinlein may have come to South Orange Grove, and stimulated by this creative environment, Jack wrote a story.
A lot of people came around they would come to the house and take him out in the middle of the night. He would come back 2 hours later, all very much disturbed. Then he started talking about the Black Brotherhood. I imagined, because the group of the whole sort of magical surroundings, that these were black hooded monks. Well, what he meant, men who wore black suits.
Crowrey era o líder do culto místico que misturava magia negra e sexo. Um rebelde que sonhava com o impossível. Parsons se fascinou com as crenças de Crowrey.
Aleister Crowrey criou uma religião que se tornou conhecida como Telema. A filosofia de Crowrey se resumia numa única sentença: faz o que tu queres. Um grande elemento disso tinha a ver com sexo.
Os seguidores
Jack Parsons comprou uma mansão com 12 quartos. Ele colocou um anúncio no jornal. E era alguma coisa assim: aluguel de quartos. Boêmios, artistas, anarquistas e ateístas só precisam se inscrever. Dá-se preferência a astrólogos, ocultistas e mulheres de moral duvidosa. E, rapidamente, ele encheu todos os cômodos vazios de sua mansão. Isso se tornou um centro de troca de parceiros, troca de esposas, troca de marido e mulher. Isso se tornou uma grande orgia, chamada de Filho da Lua. Um Messias que literalmente traria Armagedon, destruiria o mundo como conhecíamos e daí ajudaria o mundo a renascer como uma nova humanidade, uma nova civilização. Com o tempo, Jack a convence a experimentar a magia do sexo. E quanto mais ela vivenciava isso, mais se envolvia nessa cultura e pouco depois, Marjorie chega à conclusão de que Jack Parsons está certo e que, na verdade, seu destino é gerar essa criança da lua e trazer o fim do mundo. E ela se torna uma participante ativa de seus rituais da magia do sexo.
Said to me, "Did you know Jack was killed in an explosion?" I thought, explosion maybe, but Jack was not killed. I don't believe it.